Gaming discourse is an absolute trash fire. There's just no other way to go around it. And I can absolutely prove it because the last 3 weeks plus, especially on Sundays, we have been seeing practically the entire internet get up in arms and rally against a company that they don't even like in the gaming space at all. And then watch as CEOs go around and fanboy and console war in that exact same space, while at the same time, those idiots online not realizing what will happen if an entire gaping hole is left in the gaming industry and there's no one else left to fill it. That's what she said. But I think the better part of all of this is not only watching the media, but also Twitter and everyone else basically try to lambaste and push out Xbox from the gaming industry. And watching it happen in real time over this past weekend has to be one of the funniest things I've ever seen. There have been massive doubts being pushed out about Xbox, from the Sneaker SO post done on NeoGAF to Xbox being pulled from Target and Walmart's. And over those last two specific instances, Xbox has had to go out on a Sunday, no less, and go and talk about, no, we're not being pulled from these store shelves. Yes, we're working on a next generation console. No, I don't know why this is happening again every single Sunday. And this past Sunday was no different, especially after the release of the Xbox ROG Ally and Ally X, because the conversation around town is how Xbox didn't make an Xbox. I can't believe we're doing this right now. I can't believe this is where we're going, and this is how things are going to be. But you know what? It gets even crazier, because according to an article with Sarah Bond talking about next generation, it turns out they may still be in business. According to Insider Gaming, Xbox president confirms that Series X and S successors are in fact in development. Okay, there. Is that enough? Clearly, though, it's not, because even in that own tweet thread, you can clearly see nobody believes them until the console in fact comes out. And honestly, even then, if you put that console in somebody's hand, they still won't actually believe it, mostly because the way Xbox is in fact moving with their mantra of everything being an Xbox, it's not going to fit that person's insane criteria or goalpost moving of what's happening in the future or where gaming is in fact going to go. I was 8 years ahead of the curve and nobody wanted to listen to me. No, I'm serious. Literally 8 years ahead. And people thought I was crazy, yet here it is happening in front of everyone's face right now, and they're still trying to deny the actual fact. We are moving away from a console war and moving into the platform war, and nobody's realizing the real enemy against Microsoft is not PlayStation or Nintendo, it's Linux and it's Valve. But we'll talk about that later on as well, though, because apparently Xbox is in fact making another console. Let's check the article and see what happens. Xbox president Sarah Bond has confirmed that their next-gen hardware is in development, which means the Series X and S successors are on the way. Xbox has been going strong with its This Is an Xbox campaign, bringing its services to all possible platforms. They already have entered the handheld business successfully with the launch of the ROG Xbox Ally X, and are now looking to bring the Xbox to cars with their new partnership with LG. With so many platforms being addressed by Xbox, many players were wondering whether their next mainline consoles are getting any attention. Fortunately, the president has stated that development is already on and they have reached the prototype and design stage of things. Now, even in that article, in the first 3 paragraphs, we can clearly see that even Insider Gaming understands what is in fact happening. This isn't about consoles anymore. We're not living in the 90s and early 2000s. Dare I even say the 80s, as your bones turn to dust right in front of you and you fall apart as your knees sound like Rice Krispie treats when you get up out of a chair. No, we're talking about the actual new state of where gaming is going to be. We have seen game companies say that this is not a sustainable model. The AAA industry cannot succeed in this space, and having to go through and sell to the same 150 million people is not going to be enough to satiate investors and or shareholders in any conceivable way. And you've got one of two choices: either try and squeeze blood from a stone or get more lemons to make lemonade. And I think Xbox chose to get more lemons. During an interview with Variety via The Gamer, Xbox president Sarah Bond was asked whether they are still going to make in-house consoles, to which she replied, confirming that the successors of the Series X and S are development. Bond stated that they are 100% looking at making things in the future. Their next-gen hardware is already in development, and the team has, quote, been looking at prototyping, designing. The president also spoke about AMD partnership around the next-generation consoles. And this is where I'm confused about all of this. With Xbox's play of making everything into a platform, having the This Is an Xbox campaign, clearly they don't want to let go of the 30 million user base that is still paying for Game Pass at $30 a month, which is honestly incredibly expensive, but we've talked about that before, especially how much of a scam that price in fact actually is. The difference though is this: we've seen people like Moore's Law is Dead literally talk about the next APU from Xbox and what's happening with AMD. We've seen Xbox themselves team up and partner with AMD talking about the next generation of consoles. In fact, we saw it on PlayStation's own video with Mark Cerny and AMD together saying how that technology that they're working on for the next PlayStation will in fact be part of all the other open platforms available to that space. It's not anything magic or new. These companies make billions of dollars in contracts working together to make this kind of hardware. It's really strange to believe how any Tom, Dick, or Jane on Twitter can clearly say, "Oh, Xbox dead, next gen Xbox not happening because I don't like the Xbox." It's honestly wild to see, and really, I don't understand why anybody would want that kind of player from leaving the space. Look, I don't like modern PlayStation. I don't. I've talked about it. I like old PlayStation. I'm an old guy. You can tell by the grays in my face, which I'm not going to do anything about. Enjoy the grays. That your mom calls me the silver fox for a reason. But what I would like to see PlayStation do is to go back to being more creative. Stop trying to make the same game that they've always been making the last 10, 15 years. My third-person AAA action-adventure game with stealth elements. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. I want something new and different, but that doesn't mean I want PlayStation to just evaporate and leave the gaming space. That would be a moronic thing to say, but for some reason, it's okay when people want Xbox to do that exact same thing. I'm not saying Xbox is perfect. They've definitely made their mistakes. Don't forget the TV thing and Don Matrix saying, well, if you can't get online, then we've got an Xbox for you. Really, I think that did the most damage to that brand more than anything honestly ever could. But the thing is this: these companies do deserve to be in this space, and they do deserve to fight and compete for your dollar, or even you as a monthly active user. And trying to go around and be like, oh, Xbox dead, baby, we win again, really is the most idiotic thing to do. Because what you're going to be doing is creating a basically oligopoly in the gaming space, making things even worse for you. You thought a PS5 Pro costing well into the $750 range was bad? Wait till you see what happens when people just leave the gaming space entirely. That really won't be good at all, now will it? The Xbox president added that they saw a chance with the ROG Xbox Ally X to, quote, innovate in a new way to bring gamers another choice, in addition to our next generation hardware. Bond spoke about listening to what players and creators want and building things when there is demand for innovation. Bond concluded by talking, but more innovation that is to come, including towards, quote, further optimizing the experience for handhelds, scaling out the compatibility program, bringing more benefits and improvements, and offering more features to people that give them, quote, more choices and more games. Now, that last section where they talked about Play Anywhere and also the backwards compatibility program, that is a huge factor for the Xbox ROG Ally and Ally X, and especially in the future coming soon with a new Xbox console. This is the part that's interesting to me more than anything. The big reason is because we've seen the rumors of the Xbox console for the next generation being more of a PC hybrid, having that Windows OS. We're seeing it right now with the Xbox ROG Ally and Ally X, though, where basically what I consider this handheld to be is the Wii U for Xbox. the basic stepping stone before they bring out the actual thing that they really are working on. And I think that's going to be a big factor overall. You can clearly see that there are a lot of roadblocks and things to go over before the next generation comes out. And I feel like the Xbox ROG Ally X and Ally were the prototype setups for what this is going to be. People talking about, why is Teams here? Why is OneDrive here? Why do I have to sign into Outlook and all these other things? Why is there a 1 hour startup time when I first get the device? Those kinds of factors are things that have to be ironed out before you bring out your own dedicated piece of hardware moving forward with that Windows OS in tow. And we talked about it last week with what's happening with SteamOS, how Linux has put Microsoft and Xbox basically on notice, with people just leaving in droves after Windows 10 is no longer being supported and possibly moving over to Bazzite and Linux on their own. But what's really exciting is how this could bring actual competition to the operating system space. Hell, even Jez Corden on the Xbox 2 podcast said this. According to PlaysWave on Twitter, Microsoft is reportedly working on Xbox emulation for the ROG Xbox Ally and Windows devices, aiming to bring native Xbox gameplay to PCs. This could expand the Play Anywhere program and enhance gaming options for users. That alone, in my opinion, could be a big catalyst for keeping a lot of people off of SteamOS and staying onto Windows, especially those that went ahead and bought a ROG Ally or are in fact going to be buying the next generation of Xbox consoles, removing themselves from the typical bespoke operating system and bespoke hardware and creating a better layer of gaming overall, not only for PC users, which we have seen Game Pass do much better on PC more so than console, especially in terms of growth, but also at the same time be a direct competitor to SteamOS, which will then make Windows better, which will make SteamOS better and more compatible, which will then create different ways of actually having both OSs compete against each other and providing a better platform for multiple gamers on an open space. This is good for everyone because you'll have everything you need across the board. Imagine the fact that then, at that moment in time, PlayStation begins to put their games closer and closer to day and date onto PC as well. And I think that's the real reason that you see so many people claiming that Xbox is dead, because what they want is they want Xbox to follow exactly what PlayStation is doing, and they're not doing that. They are bucking the trend. They are taking a huge bet on this, and I feel that it could pay off if they do it correctly, and we'll talk about that in a moment too. But the thing is, we've also seen exactly why people have this really weird obsession with this brand as well. And our boy the Turk, well, he exposed everything. The Turk made a post on Twitter saying this: I proved that, quote, the Xbox tax is real, and I didn't even use an Xbox. Yesterday was a red letter day for me on X. 1.5 million impressions, 4 times the engagement, 2 times the reposts, 2.5 times the likes, and it was all over a lie. With the quote Xbox Ally reveal, the internet exploded. It's not a real Xbox. It's $1,000 for a handheld scam. But here's the thing, I wasn't even showing you the Xbox Ally at all. Everything I posted was gameplay from the 2023 ROG Ally. Older silicon, similar performance, same OS. But no one cared until the word Xbox got attached to it. Now, what's really funny about the Turk's post is I bring that up to explain this. If everybody is losing their minds about simply trying to determine whether or not the next Xbox console is going to exist, but also at the fact that the Xbox ROG Ally and Ally X are in fact Xbox devices, what's going to happen with the next generation console if it follows that same mantra, if it plays every game on PC, if it has access to every storefront, but in a console format? And hopefully, if things work out the way they're supposed to, Windows in fact does the right thing, which we'll also talk about, and goes through and makes things easier to use for the actual customer and consumer. You're talking about a complete generational upending thing that could literally impact the entire gaming industry, forcing again into the platform wars more so than the console wars, where units sold and my console sales really doesn't mean a lot when your monthly active users is in the 100 million plus or even higher, because you're counting every Windows user, every Xbox user. Now apparently literally everybody driving a car, every fridge, every toaster. That's exactly what they want, to be ubiquitous with everything. And that way being the first place you go to, since that platform follows you across every single device. The box itself is no longer important. What's important now is what service and platform you sign into to play your games, regardless of whether or not they're on the service or you buy them directly digitally, because that's going to be what people find the most convenient. And convenience is king. That's why Steam is the way it is. But apparently, though, there are even ex-CEOs that are mad about this move. And yes, we have CEO salt today, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready. Tim Dog on Twitter said this: I would have never had Windows touch that fucking ROG. It have Xbox OS on the handheld and play those games on Game Pass. The current ROG Ally X should be fucking partitioned and just put the Xbox OS on it. What the fuck are they doing at Quick? They actually had a good idea, but they once again didn't execute. It's fucking haunted. Now that alone right there is in fact a giant grown man having a literal titty temper tantrum about Xbox and the ROG Ally X not being an Xbox, even though we've clearly talked about how it actually is an Xbox. It's got the branding, it's got the logo, it plays Xbox games, it even plays PC games, and it even plays PlayStation games. So you could literally call it a PlayStation 2 if you wanted to. But I think the more insane part about this is the generational Xbox hater, I got fired twice because I'm a bitter ex Mike Ibarra, replying to Tim Dog, saying this: it makes sense to me since they are out of hardware and exclusive games. Already, we're off to a raucous start. At the first sentence, he's wrong about everything because they just said they weren't out of hardware and they just put out the Ally and Ally X with Asus. So I don't... Okay, and exclusive games, as if that actually... Okay, I guess. Well, PlayStation doesn't have them either because I play them all on my PC, but... Okay, all right, let's keep going. That includes a dedicated OS, which is essential for any console device, ease of use, security, etc. They are a publisher who will embrace Windows. Most will just pirate all the games to the devices unless they use Steam. Why does Steam help piracy? Because it's a flawless experience with a great return policy. Windows is far from a flawless experience and will never be one. All right, there was a lot to unpack in that paragraph. All right, okay, listen, I don't really know if Mike Ibarra even understands PC gaming or Steam or anything in general. Steam doesn't help piracy. Steam curbs piracy. I'm going to pretend that that's probably what he meant to say, like it helps stop piracy. Maybe that's what he meant, because Steam doesn't help it. It just, okay, that's number one. We'll give him that one. Hopefully he was just typing that in a fit of rage. But let's talk about this other thing now, about like, oh, they're just going to pirate the video games. Why would they pirate the video games if Steam is on the Xbox ROG Ally or the next Xbox console and you can just buy your games on Steam? What even is this? This is like the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. This is like back in the 2000s when people said like, oh, don't put your games on PC. Everybody's just going to pirate it. And then it turns out that when you put your games on PC, everybody buys it. This really just, oh my God. And like security, what? Like these OSs are in fact sometimes just Windows side shells. So I don't even understand where he's coming from with this in the first place. It really feels like this guy's so out of touch and he's just like trying to grasp at anything he possibly can to say these kinds of things and not have any sort of like understanding of what's in fact happening. But he continues though. From a business standpoint, it's a fine strategy. If they can make good games and embrace Steam, will sell on PlayStation, Nintendo, and PC. Big if, given the track record of games for the last 15 years. Only a moron would continue to make console hardware when the games all go or will go third party. To shift, they'd have to go back to exclusive, make great hardware at a loss, and strive to win the living room. That's not their strategy, which is fine, but for some reason, they keep riding the middle, not being clear, doing more harm for no reason. As I said 1,000 times, get a clear strategy and rip the band-aid off and focus on execution, otherwise dead by 1,000 needles. This is how I know that Mike Ybarra is in fact out of touch and out of time. Oh. Literally going around and acting like we're still in the 90s and 2000s, fighting for the living room. That is long gone. Generation Alpha and even Gen Z don't care about the living room anymore. What they're fighting for now is just your attention. Everybody's too busy on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything else to go ahead and get that time back. And the best way you're going to get their attention back is to not have them go to where you are, but for you to go where they are. And I think his logic and thought process really fits back then in the 90s and 2000s. But nowadays, things have in fact changed, where you can't sit there and do the same thing you've done before and expect better results. You have to then shift the actual style. And Xbox going towards the actual consumer rather than forcing the consumer to go to them is in fact, in my opinion, the right move. Mike Ybarra even said it. It's a good business strategy. So if it's a good strategy for business, why is it bad all of a sudden? Because that really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And we're talking about exclusivity. Well, no one's got exclusives except for Nintendo. So what in fact are we even trying to argue here? Because I can wait 6 months to a year and play all the PlayStation greatness on my PC. So what's the actual problem? Why even have PlayStation make hardware in the first place? Uh-oh. Isn't that a spooky conundrum that you just came up with on your own? Whoops. And finally, Ybarra says this. Also, ditch the quote, "This is an Xbox campaign." Wrong idea, wrong time. Xbox is about games. Games always rule the world. And if they don't have the parity between the console and any other quote device, then it's just not on Xbox. Confusing. Whoever came up with this clearly doesn't play games. There's really nothing confusing about that campaign. I think what Ybarra wants, just like so many other people on the internet want, well, basically just PlayStation fanboys, is for Xbox to do the exact same thing that PlayStation does and stay in that exact same rut. But the thing is, they can't compete in that because PlayStation has already just dug their heels in to that 150 million user base that they're always going to tend to do. And so has Nintendo. So Xbox has to do something different, true competition. And if you're talking about the industry being all about games, then their brand and their console having every game across every storefront from every platform is exactly how they're going to win. Literally, Ybarra is explaining in great detail why this is an Xbox is in fact the right move for Xbox, and explaining why having every game in one platform from every storefront is in fact best for the consumer, the customer, and for business. How do you sit there and say this is the wrong move, then turn around in your own post explain perfectly why it's the right move? And if you really want to have a lot of fun, you can in fact bet your sweet bippy and go back to the history of every single one of these PlayStation fanboys. We did it with MBG. We did it with so many others. They in fact used to be Xbox fanboys, and for some reason decided to defect in the console war because Xbox did something that they didn't like. And instead of just actually being adults about things and saying, well, I just won't buy your product and support you, they instead turn around and now fly the flag of another giant conglomerate corporation that doesn't even know they exist or who they actually are, just wants to prolapse them for their money, and they represent them in some kind of like fictional war. It's honestly incredibly sad, and watching Ybarra do it is even worse. But the thing is, I'm going to be honest, even though I am tepidly excited for what's to come in the future with the platform wars and how OSs can in fact be better for the user overall and having a better space to have different places to buy your games and take your library with you like an open platform should, there are some concerns that I in fact have with Microsoft putting Windows onto their next set of consoles. And that in fact is Satya Nadella's incessant idea of having AI. I mean, we even found out that 30% of Microsoft code is written by AI, and this is not a good thing, especially after finding out that the latest Windows update completely bricks any sort of recovery usage of your keyboard and or mouse in that setup, basically just rendering your PC useless if you in fact have to go into recovery for whatever particular reason, causing Microsoft to go through and scramble to now have an update to come out, which by the way, do not update your Windows, and that's going to be a problem moving forward and having to go through and have your PC completely bricked entirely because Microsoft wants to have this AI thing completely. And in my opinion, this is going to be the main point, dare I say, the one nail holding the entire deck of cards together that could completely crumble and fuck up the entire new Xbox initiative of being a PC hybrid console next generation, or even right now. And that is the fact that Windows is not even close to being anywhere reliable to where people have actual trust in that operating system. People are more interested in what Steam and Valve are doing with Linux on that space and feeling more comfort and reliability moving there than they are of actually moving over to Windows in the first place. Even needing TPM support and even having specific games require anti-cheat and kernel level 0 access. I am excited, tepidly, about what could be in the future, but I feel like Microsoft is going to Microsoft things up and shit the bed like they always in fact tend to somehow do, especially on their Windows side. But hopefully, fingers crossed, things get pulled back together and they provide a good, reliable user interface, good backwards compatibility for other digital titles on their Xbox storefront across multiple devices, and then have the ability to go through and provide users a better experience overall. But of course, I feel like that kind of wish is shooting for the moon. But we'll see how things go with next generation, because apparently they're making another console and people are more than likely going to get mad about it. And when they're mad, I'll put them here in this content right for you. But if you like this kind of video, thank you. And if you didn't like it, fuck you. If you want to see more of this kind of content though, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, my hot takes in the gaming industry, and even live streams every Saturday night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live on this channel, subscribe. We're on our way to 96,000 subs, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. If you want Discord access or most during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to pay the buck, don't sweat it. Just show up Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live right here on this channel as I get insulted by around 800 people while wearing a banana suit, and they all use AITTS to make fun of me. Trust me, it's a hell of a show. You don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!